Hello, I'm Camilla Ray. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have episode 2 of Brain Dumps for you, which actually you probably don't know what Brain Dumps is because in the first Brain Dumps I named it like Little Nuggets, but I decided to change the name to Brain Dumps because it seems like less pressure to me, like it's just a brain dump. Like I could be spitting facts, I could be just talking anything. So yeah, this is episode 2 of Brain Dumps, and this week I've been thinking about fear and challenge. So I just wanted to share some thoughts that I've had on those two. So if you want to know my thoughts on fear and challenge, keep watching. So I feel like fear has a bad rep for like being a hindrance on our goals and aspirations, or like what we want to do. And I guess I've been rethinking fear, and instead of, I remember in another episode or another video I talked about, I wonder if you can hear the wind in the back. If you can, sorry. I know in another video I talked about fear. It was in my lessons of 2020 video. And I talked about how like you don't really have to be fearless. You just have to be less afraid of whatever you want. You have to want the thing more than you're afraid of it, really. And like that, like canceling out will equal the fear not being a hindrance to you. But even that, like, okay, well, I have to be less afraid. That's still like, how do I get less afraid than I am now? But I've been thinking about fear in a different way where like, oh, how could I use fear to my advantage? Lately, something that I've been getting really afraid of is like unleashing my wild side, or just like embracing the parts of me that aren't really like super acceptable to some people in my life, or like society at large, and just like trying to embrace that side of me, but also not wanting to face like scrutiny or disapproval or anything like that. And so I feel like within me, like wanting to embrace my wilder side is what I'm gonna call it, even though like I don't know how wild it is. But yeah, in wanting to embrace my wild side a bit more, the things that I fear about that are like, okay, I don't want to face scrutiny, I don't want to face disapproval, and things like that. So the way that fear operates as a deterrent to do things is if I'm focused on the fear of not wanting to be scrutinized, for example, then I might be stopping myself from unleashing my wild side. And that's one way to look at it. But another way to look at it is that the fear is motivating me to do something else. And in this case, the fear of being scrutinized is motivating me to suppress my wild side, to be more polite and pleasant. I don't know, to not curse when I want to, or that's a dumb example, but something like that. So, excuse me. So in that case, the fear is hindering me, but also when I shift my perspective, it's motivating me. Like it's motivating me to do these certain things. And so I thought, okay, well, what if I just was afraid of something else? What if I thought of another thing as a fear that might motivate me into actually doing what I want to do? And so one thing that I might be afraid of is, or that I am afraid of, is never experiencing the fullness of who I am. And so a great way to never experience the fullness of who I am is to never embrace this more wild side of me that might not be accepted by society at large, or might be scrutinized by like people I know, or my family or friends or whatever. So a fear of not embracing my full self, or never like experiencing the fullness of who I am, that might hinder me from keeping myself small, people pleasing, or trying to be more pleasant or more like acceptable. But it also might motivate me to actually embrace my full self and put myself out there more and be more honest in my writing or my YouTube videos or anything that I do. And so that might be motivating me to live a full life because I'm afraid of not ever being able to experience that. And so what I'm saying is that we can shift our perspective on our fear and figure out another, like, if you can't get over your fear, just like imagine what else you might be afraid of. Like, what's the greater fear? Am I more afraid of being scrutinized, or am I more afraid of never getting to experience the fullness of myself? For me, I'm more afraid of the latter. And so I am pushing myself to continue putting myself out there. And still the fear of scrutiny is in my mind, but it just is outweighed by this other fear. And so maybe this could apply to you in a way that maybe you're afraid of something. For an example, maybe you have a dream of maybe you have a dream of being a dancer, or maybe you have a dream of being the first person in your family to become a lawyer. In either of those cases, like if you have lofty career goals, you might fear failure, but maybe if you sit and think about it, you might be more afraid of never giving yourself the opportunity to become that lawyer, become that dancer, or whatever career goal that you have. And so, yeah, just wanted to share that because I thought that was like a little hack to fear, where like you can actually use fear to your advantage. So, and for me, it's been like pretty helpful in facing my fear and like embracing myself more, and like putting myself out there more in my writing and like my podcast that I have, which I'll leave the links to all of those other projects that I do below. And even with YouTube videos, it helps me be more honest and more myself, because I'm afraid of never like showing my whole self to the world, or like really embracing myself. Now let's move on to challenge. So I have a background in athletics. When I was younger, maybe like before I was 10, I don't really remember the years before I was 10, but the whole thing, before I was 10, I was doing martial arts, and I was doing martial arts competitively, and I loved it so much. And then after that, I did basketball in high school, and then I did track in the latter half of high school and in college. And with competitive sports, it has always been a source of anxiety for me, and just like where my lack of confidence always really showed, because I just had such an unhealthy relationship with being met with challenge, where like if something was hard for me, I would think that there was something wrong with me, or I would just take it as like I'm not good enough because I'm being challenged. And being an athlete is all about challenging yourself to become better every single day, every single game, every single, competition. And so also in school, it didn't help much because I was a pretty fast learner. So I'd always pick up concepts pretty easily. And when I got to college, and like honestly, the first class that I actually struggled in, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like it was such a hard experience for me, because it felt like it was like shattering my sense of intellect, because I had built up my confidence on not being challenged, or like things coming easily to me. So when things came hard to me, I thought it meant that I wasn't good enough or smart enough. Now I'm retired. And honestly, I didn't do that well according to my standards in college as an athlete. But what I admired about myself is I always showed up to challenges, because the whole 3 years of the experience was a challenge. And every practice, every competition, like I was meeting myself with challenges that were pushing me to get better. If not as I was a triple jumper, if not as a triple jumper, as a person. Like I developed mental grit from that experience that I'll carry with me through my whole life, because I was meeting myself with challenges, and like really learning that lesson of, okay, if I meet myself, if this is very challenging for me, what does that mean about myself? At first I was like, it means I suck. But as I grew, it meant that I was a person who can face challenge and face hardship, and still keep moving forward. And like I just never gave up. Corona made me give up, but I didn't give up. So I'm not an athlete anymore, but I do have my own, like I fell off of working out for a little bit, but I've been starting back up working out, and like trying to be or being consistent in like my workout plans and stuff. You know, it's really important to me to maintain health in general, but also like maintain strength in my body. I'm so grateful for this body that I experience all of this life in, and so I want to keep it healthy and as strong as I can for as long as possible. And also there's a mental aspect of working out that I think is really beneficial for mental health as well. And working out and that presenting yourself with that challenge helps in a lot of areas in your life. So it's not just about your physical health, but we'll get into that. So, oh, and another thing is that I've started a meditation practice. I think today was my 40th day of meditating, like 40 days in a row. So that's really cool. And like building a meditation practice, even that has taken me like all year to do. I think the first time that I like actually tried to form a meditation practice was in January of this year, 2020. And it took me almost all year to, because today is like December 29th that I'm recording this. And so it took me all year to be able to actually like form consistency in that habit and build that muscle that wants to come back to the practice every day. And so I want to talk about the aspects of challenge, both in, you know, fitness, both in fitness and in meditation, and how great it is to present ourselves with that challenge. So I've been following this Nike Training Club routine that I love so much. It's this workout plan, or I'm doing one specific workout plan on there, but I love that they have like courses that you can take on there for all different levels. And you know, these are actual like professionals who are just really good at what they do, and the programs are solid. So I like it a lot, and they're challenging, very challenging. And the program I'm doing right now is like a 6-week course. And when I started it, I had been running, like doing longer runs, but I hadn't really done any strength training in like months. So any muscle that I had was like really not there. I had to kind of like start from scratch a little bit. And I remember the first week they were single leg hip thrusts, yeah. And when I tell you I could not do it, I was like, there's no way I can ever do this. And I know that I'd done hip thrusts before, but I was like, I just can't ever do them again or whatever. Or like I ended up doing the modification, which was like double leg hip thrust, and I felt so bad about having to do the modification and like, why can't I just do this other thing? And I have this thing where I try to push myself mentally, like, okay, it hurts really bad, but just like keep going. And I guess over time, like I noticed like the next week I could do the single leg hip thrust because I was building muscle all week. And so like by continually trying to do them and maybe trying to do them and failing and then deciding to do the double leg instead, eventually when I tried to do it, I actually could complete the whole thing, however the non-modified version was. And I don't know, I guess I just noticed that yes, working out is about pushing yourself, but when it's pushing yourself to your limits. And when you find that limit, there's no shame in having limits because we all do. But I think sometimes we think of our limits as static and like this is the highest I can go for my whole life. When our limits are actually like not static, they're dynamic, and they're always like expanding and contracting, because there was a time where I could do single leg hip thrusts and now there was a time where I couldn't. The beauty of presenting yourself with challenge is that when we present ourselves with challenge, our bodies naturally adjust to be able to overcome that challenge. And if we approach a challenge and push ourselves to our limits, eventually our bodies adjust our limits to be able to surpass that challenge or meet that challenge. And so the same thing with meditation. Like when I sat down for meditation at the beginning of the year, the thing that I had difficulty with was I was like, dang, like I'm trying to like release my thoughts or whatever, not follow my thoughts, because that's the thing about meditation. Like it's not about not having thoughts, it's about being able to watch your thoughts and building that kind of snap back muscle in your mind to notice that you're being distracted and bring yourself back to center. And when I first started meditation, I just would follow my thought all the way down the street. And I'd be like, dang, like I'm trying to not be distracted, but or like I'm trying to be distracted less, but it just wasn't happening. And that's not the point of meditation. It's not to like strong arm your way through the exercise. The point is to notice yourself being distracted, and just the act of observing yourself and observing your limits. Like, oh, I've been centered for 5 seconds and now I'm distracted. Like, just observing that, over time your mind develops on its own to be able to snap back. Like, just working that muscle. I'm calling it a muscle, but I don't know if it's actually like a physical thing. But just developing that mental muscle, like over time, your mind on its own, like it's not something that you have to force, it just happens. And that's the thing, like we don't have to force our limits to expand, they just happen when we allow ourselves to be challenged and when we allow ourselves to know our limits. But the thing about staying away from things that challenge us mentally, emotionally, physically, is that we never give ourselves the opportunity to know our limits. And so how can we expand our limits if we don't even know what they are? So those are the thoughts that I had to share with you this week. Did you have any thoughts that you want to share with me this week, or what do you think about what I've shared today? Have you had like your own struggles with fear or with challenge? I'd love to know. Please leave your thoughts and your comments and your questions in the comments down below, and we can continue the conversation. As always, I'm so happy to have this space to be able to share my thoughts and opinions with you all. And so thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I will see you in another video. Bye.